Hello and good morning. It's a little bit early here, but I wanted to actually record this video outside because this next series of videos is going to discuss, or we're going to explore, I guess, the dynamics of the gates, or some of the gates, in the quarter of civilization on the human design mandala. And as I'm sitting here listening to the birds, you can hear them. We're just a few days past the summer solstice, a couple days. It's July 22nd, 2019, and the summer solstice came in with the gate 15, the sun in the gate 15. So this is kind of where we're starting this journey of exploration for the next few weeks. The 15 is very much about, in human design it's known as the gate of extremes, and it's very much about embracing extremes, synchronizing with the natural rhythms, which is why I'm kind of out here, and understanding or working with those natural rhythms to find a balance between extremes. So here in the northern hemisphere, like I said, we have just gotten through or just come past the midpoint of the year. The summer solstice is that midpoint marker of the year. And if you were to look on the human design mandala, you would see we're kind of right at the bottom. And the 15 is right there at the bottom, or pretty much at the bottom. So it's a great place to enter in and begin to consider, because a quarter of civilization is about bringing, the textbook says, bringing spirit into form, bringing energy into form. And it's so synchronous with the season, the summer season of the northern hemisphere. I'm in the southeast of the United States, so if you're here, or if you're in a climate that's similar to this kind of a climate, you know that there are a lot of extremes during this time. And the extreme that really comes to mind, it comes from the example of weather, or the experience of weather extremes. So if you're in a climate like I'm in, you know that this time of year has built within it this lushness, this sense of everything being in bloom, everything coming up. If you plant a garden, or if you farm or anything like that, you know that all of your crops are starting to come up. All of your summer crops are starting to come up that you will harvest in the fall. And along with that is the high grass. I don't know if you can see all my high grass that I just mowed last week. The weeds, the insects, everything all at once converges. And the other thing that happens weather-wise is that thunderstorms can come up out of nowhere. So, for instance, today the weather is calling for scattered thunderstorms, and as I'm looking around, the sun just came out, but there are these dark clouds that are sort of looming here and there. And what tends to happen is that the heat and the humidity will build, and then all of a sudden a thunderstorm, or sometimes even a tornado, if the winds start to go, and someone who is a meteorologist could tell you much more about that in technical terms, but those high pressures, low pressures, they clash, or whatever they do in the atmosphere, and we get this violent weather. And then that violent weather plays out as a way to balance the atmosphere. And then, like in the case of a thunderstorm, that thunderstorm clears out, it rains, it moves on, whatever it does, and then we're left with this calm atmosphere, this fresh air that's filled with ozone, that's filled with the freshness of renewal. And it's sort of this unpredictable cycle of extremes. You know, we have the heat, sometimes we have drought, sometimes we have rain in the summer, sometimes we have these thunderstorms, sometimes we have the heat and the humidity. And it goes back and forth between these extremes, you know. And then in concert with that, the sun, being in this theme of extremes, is stimulating the natural world to come forth and bloom and blossom and grow to its full potential. And in that, in and of itself, are the extremes of, okay, we have these beautiful vegetables, these beautiful fruits, these gorgeous flowers, whatever it is that you're growing, or whatever it is that's growing in your corner of the world. And at the same time, we have this grass and these weeds and these pesky insects, and which are all part of the ecosystem, but it's all there at once, right? And it's so extreme. It's like nature growing on steroids at this time of year. So what does that have to do with us really attuning to this theme of extremes in the Gate 15 at this time, and how that can support us in bringing energy into form? This Gate of Extremes has a lot to do with the Schumann frequency, which is 7.8 hertz, I believe. You can look it up, and it's the core frequency of all living beings. So for me, how I really feel that and interpret that, and how I'm kind of resonating with that today, is that all of us have this core frequency, and Mother Earth has this core frequency of the 7.8 hertz, right? And all living creatures are designed or created to resonate with that core frequency that brings about a balance and a synchronous flow or synchronous connection among all life forms and creation. So I know I'm getting kind of abstract there, but what I'm getting at here is that the Gate 15, or the Gate of Extremes, and the extremes in our environment, the extremes in our life, are there to, especially those violent extremes. Let's use the example of the thunderstorms. Those violent extremes, those extremes where we're in the middle of our personal storms, are there to help bring about this balance, to give us the opportunity to synchronize with the resonance of our core life form frequency. So the question for you is, where do you feel extremes in your life right now? Where are you feeling those extremes? Are you going through a storm? Are you having sudden storms sort of pop up out of nowhere after some pressure builds in your life? You know, where are you judging yourself, perhaps in the extreme of good or bad, self or not self? That's another extreme, using the human design understanding that we can be aligned with self or not self. Let's see, what else do I have on my list? Flood or drought. Feast or famine is a really interesting theme of extremes, especially when it comes to creating and growing abundance in our lives. How many times have you felt like you were in a feast or famine situation in your life? All of those extremes are there to show us or to guide us toward the balance, the natural balance that we can have with the frequency of our life force. And what drives this, if you look at where the 15 is on the human design chart, it comes off of the G center, the center for love, identity, direction. The G center is the home of the magnetic monopole. It's really the resonance of what creates the magnetic frequency of attraction in us. And it's sort of fueled by love. It is fueled by love. So wherever there are extremes, whether you're seeing extremes in the, it's really easy to look at the outside world these days and see the extremes in the polarity in the way that people relate to each other. And you may be experiencing those extremes in your life of the way that maybe you relate to other people, or the way that you're experiencing those feast and famine cycles, or those judgments of good and bad, your self and not self experiences, all of that. So wherever you're experiencing that, I just want to encourage you to take some time to really feel that, and to get in touch with your heart frequency, get in touch with your heart energy, and step back from the judgment and the struggle of those extremes, so that you can open your heart more to loving and embracing, first and foremost, yourself, because actually the grounding theme that is complementary to the 15 at this time is the gate 10 in the earth. The earth is in gate 10. So gate 10 is about self-empowerment, self-love, acting on behalf of yourself, aligning with what is true for you. And that is the grounding of this sense of finding balance between the extremes. So where can you come from a place of self-love first and foremost, so that you can open your heart to embrace the extremes in your life? And when you embrace those extremes with that love, it's going to open you up more to embracing with love the extremes around you, the extremes of humanity, and it's going to allow you to use that magnetism, or to work with that magnetism, or flow with that magnetism within you, to naturally find your own balance between extremes. You can use the extremes that you judge as bad or not good or uncomfortable or painful or whatever it is as a point of dynamic tension, to create this transformation, to open your heart even more, to unleash that magnetic resonance that's deep within your core, that allows you to be one with the all, one with the all of all living beings, to synchronize your 7.8 hertz, or open up to that 7.8 hertz of the Schumann frequency, to be synchronized to the one, to being one with the all. So this is a really powerful thing to consider and to work with when you are working along this dynamic of bringing energy into form, of bringing your spirit into form. We really need to have that unconditional stance, that stance of unconditional love and acceptance, in order to balance the extremes and to really make the most of the extremes, the storms, the whatever it is that you're experiencing in your life, so that more can grow, so that it can grow in harmony with the way that nature means for you and everything that you touch and relate to grow into fruition and abundance. And it all starts, at least where we are today and how we're entering into the mandala. This is a component of really understanding that in order to bring your spirit, the energy, the unseen into form, it needs to be in balance with nature. And a part of that balance actually encompasses the extremes. And the extremes are there to help us to work with that dynamic tension, to bring about even a greater balance, to bring about even more growth, more development, more of whatever it is that you need to eventually reap the benefits of, or reap the harvest of what you've planted. So I know I've rambled a bit here, and the sun's coming out, so I need to go in. I really appreciate that you're here. If you want to follow this little series through the summer, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the notification button. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's what some of you are telling me, but it gives you a better chance of seeing these videos. If you want to have more resources, I'm developing a free resource portal, and I'll leave the link so that you can join me there. I think that's it for now. In another few days, I'll be back with the next part of this series, the next place where the sun will be, where we can have some light shed on how we bring our spirit into form. So until the next time, be well.